We're all
Hi,
there.
James. How are you?
Pastor Alexiou, it's so nice looking at you now.
Yeah, finally. Oh, I can see you. I can see you. Very, very nice. I'm so happy we do this.
And you know what? Before I forget, I have to, the email you sent me representing the Greek woman, that touched me. It took me days to get over it. I never thought of myself. I just want to tell my story. I'm a simple person. I did what I did for justice. And I'm still active now with the Native Americans. But thank you so much for that email. That really touched me.
No, it is true. It is true because to do things because you are altruistic. You don't want to get anything out of it, just to to offer. And this is very rare. Very rare, and we thank you very much for this. And I think it's time to tell your story to a larger audience, because it's very inspiring, not only for the Greek American community, but for the Greeks in Greece, the Americans here, and all those minority groups that you're talking about, because you know better than I do that to struggle for human rights. And give a voice to people who don't have a voice. This is democracy, and this is what you do and what you did.
People ask me if I was scared. No, I was never scared. I'm not scared. But I have to admit something. I have a very hard time talking to Greek people in English. When Fonda Lad is called, I said, I can't talk to you in English. I'll talk to you in Greek. But anyway, I'll do my best.
We can go between languages in and out, no problem, because I can put some subtitles to your Greek response.
Where are you from Greece?
I am from the port where Jason sailed and the Argonauts. I am from Volos.
Oh, from Volos.
Yes.
I have a friend, he has a house there in Volos. And I mentioned Volos in my book also.
Yes, the mountain pillion with the centers.
Yeah.
So I would like to start with your storytelling, where you were born, where you grew up, stories about Greece and America, and then let's present stories from your book. And I will appreciate it if you can read 2 or 3 short passages from the book.
Yeah, I have it already. Which ones? Well, I was born. Oh.
Can we see the book also?
The book?
Yes.
Here it is.
Yes. Athena. Yes.
I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
Very nice.
And people ask me about my accent, and I tell them that's how they speak in Detroit, with an accent. No. But my father sent us to Greece when I was 3 years old because the Depression was here, and things were better in Greece then, in 1932.
And the family, your parents, where they came from, and when they immigrated to America?
Okay, my father came first. My father had finished college, scholarchio, which is equivalent to college here. But he came here because he didn't want to go fight in Minor Asia. So he came here with a false passport. And because he was educated, they put him as a foreman in the railroads.
I see.
And they gave him the name Johnson. But he went back to Mijos. And then he went to Greece to marry my mother.
Where the father was from?
Okay, my father was from a town near Nafpachtos called Eupalio. They have a high school there. It's a beautiful, beautiful town. And we used to spend summer times there, and also during the war, we were there. And that town is called the village of doctors. 78 to 79 doctors came from that little village. Wow. And I remember their grandmothers. I remember a lot of the doctors because I'm 91, so I remember back. And Then he came back to marry my mother, and he stayed there, and my mother built a house. We still have it there in Efpalio. And they left for America, but they left my brother Christo behind with my grandmother. And my grandmother said, if you take the boy, you'll never come back to Greece. And when my mother said they got to Italy with a boat, she wanted to go back to Greece and pick up my brother. And they went to Springfield, Massachusetts. And I was born in Detroit, but then my brother John, he lives in Washington, D.C. right now, was born in Massachusetts. And my oldest brother was born in Greece.
Wow.
And my mother came from a town called Potidania, which a lot of Greek philosophers went through those towns. A lot of Greek philosophers went through those towns.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So Detroit was a place with a lot of working class people for the automobile factories. It was also a Greek community there. You had any interaction with the community growing up?
No, I'll tell you, in with the Honda, I had many Greek professors come to my house. There were 9 of them. And all of them said, what are you doing here in America? Because I love Greece. And when I go to Greece and they tell me, here comes the American, I said, why do you swear at me? I'm Greek. And then we went for a meeting in Detroit. And that was, when we went to the airport here with a friend of mine, F. Kalambokidis from Salonika, his wife couldn't go along, so she said, why don't you go? We got arrested as a hijackers.
How come?
Yeah. And then
they said she fit the profile.
Well, when I went there, I told my friend, everybody's going in the plane except us. They're not giving us our tickets. So I went there to ask, why you're not giving us our tickets? You two meet the profile of hijackers. And I started laughing. And my friend said, give me a piece of paper and pencil. Tomorrow you're going to be in the paper. Anyway, they searched us. Yeah.
Well, when you were born in Detroit, you left 1932.
Yeah, 1932. So I had gone back until...
But you went to Detroit and then you went to Springfield, where your brother was born 17 months after you were.
Yeah.
And then they went to Greece. So by the time she was 3, she was gone back to Greece. So she didn't have much interaction with the Greek community.
None. Zero.
And when you came back to the States, how old were you?
17.
Okay, a young teenager. But you were already an American citizen, right?
Oh yeah, I wanted to have my Greek citizenship, but I worked too late and they had the international now. But I consider myself by blood, I'm Greek. Okay. And that's what I was telling the prison, the director. When I wanted to be Greek, I was a Greek. When I wanted to be an American, I was an American. And he said to me, I don't know what to do with you anymore.
Well, she was born here, so she's American by birth.
Yeah, by birth.
American passport.
And your involvement against the Greek junta, how that started?
Oh,
I know in New York, it was because of the presence and the visits of Mikis Theodorakis, who organized some of the Greeks here. But how was your case? How you got involved into all this?
How did I get involved? Stathis Panagoulis, the brother of Olekos, came to Minneapolis. And we had a little meeting with some friends, and I mentioned that I wanted to go back to Greece. So he figured out I would be a good person for helping Olekos. And that's how it started. And I went to Greece, and I met Stathis at the Hilton Hotel. I did not know they were following us. They were following me everywhere I went. I found that after. And that's how it's like he introduced me to Costas, his friend, a friend of Alekos, to get involved. And I wanted to help Alekos for the simple reason he was the tortures that he was. It bothered me so much, and I said, if I can help, I will. And then I met. Well, then we met together, and I told him from the beginning, whoever is helping us, he's gonna turn us in. I don't trust any guards. I don't trust anybody. And that's what happened. The guard turned us in.
Well, she was involved in the Greek resistance during the Second World War. And so she was politicized, and she was always aware of politics, you know, the abuses of the fascists and so forth, the right wing. And so when she was here in the United States, after she came back from Greece, she went to Janesville, Wisconsin, where her father had a restaurant the Central Cafe in downtown Janesville. And I think, you know, she was sort of like a fish out of water because she had lived through the war and people here hadn't really experienced the war firsthand. And she got married and I think sort of got involved in just living her life, but she was always aware of politics. And they formed a group here, Minnesotans for Democracy and Freedom in Greece, other Greeks who lived here, who had come from Greece mainly for higher education. And so she was always politically active in opposing the junta. That's why I think when Stathis came here, she went to see Stathis, and Stathis met with her group, Minnesotans for Democracy and Freedom in Greece.
He knows my whole life, because if it wasn't for him, the book would have never been published.
You have to excuse, I feel very emotional because the other day was the sad anniversary of Alekos Panagoulias' assassination, and I read again the stories and I saw the pictures and the torture and all the things that he went through, and still very close to this. You ever met with Aleko?
I never met him, but when he was free, he called me up here at this house to thank me for what I did. He blamed his brother a little bit for getting me involved because I had 3 children. I was a single mom. But I said, no, unfortunately, we did not succeed of helping him. And eventually, of course, they killed him.
I know, either from experience or other people's experience, that during the junta years in Greece, it wasn't allowed for many people to get together. How you made your contacts in Greece?
Through Kostas Androutsopoulos, an attorney, a friend of Alekos. Stathi knew him. He introduced me to Costa. And we met downtown Athens with my 2 little daughters. And we had ice cream.
Well, when Stathis was here, he arranged to send you a postcard.
To Costa, yeah. And that's how I met Costas.
He sent you a postcard.
And
some of your activities in Greece against the junta, can you describe some of them? Can you mention some of them?
Against the junta?
Yeah, you organize people, you went to demonstrations, you help political prisoners, some of your activities.
Here in Minneapolis, I was demonstrating, I think every day. We had organized people demonstrating against the junta every day. They knew him, they knew me. I was very, very against the junta and politically involved. They knew me here, but I wasn't afraid.
Was the Greek American community in Minnesota involved, or they had second thoughts? They were supportive of the junta, or they're neutral?
Very interesting.
What was the role of the church at that time?
Oh, you know what? I was very disappointed. I went with 3 more friends, one of my cousins, and Ev Kalambokidis, another person. We went to that celebration of the march, the Independence Day. When we walked in, excuse me, there were 4 Hunda people waiting on each corner. Now, my friend, he did not know them. I knew them. And I said, those are Hunda people waiting for us. When I walked in the hallway, they're mostly Americans. And when I saw against Kolokotronis, Karaiskakis, the bird of Papadopoulos, I completely froze. One of the priests were pro-Hunda. And they had put that bird, you know, that big poster?
The symbol.
Yeah, and I had in my purse things from the Human Rights Commission, what was going on in Greece. They invited a right-wing reporter to present the independent state. He knew nothing about Greece. And I was going to give him these papers.
He's an American journalist from a local
Yeah.
TV station. He had been to Greece, and he's known here as someone who always supported American foreign policy.
Yeah.
And the right-wing governments, authoritarian governments around the world. So.
And a group of them surrendered me, and they wanted to start beating me up. And I said, I just want to give these papers to the journalist. Anyway, they let me go, but they did not get involved. If I say I was involved with the Greek church, I was in the choir years ago, they did not want to take a stand, but most of them were pro-Hunda. In fact, they were threatening me with my kids. They were threatening me. And some of them still, the ones that's still alive, they still hold that against me, that I was against the Hunda. One of them said, if Hitler had won, things would have been better. I mean, that, unfortunately, the Greek church did not. Athanasia Papanasiou came here. She stayed with me, the actress, and she gave an acting at the University of Minnesota. Most of them were Americans that came. Maybe about a handful of Greeks from the Greek church came. No, they were against. No, they liked the Hunda.
Do you think now things are better about, as far as concerns the Greek American community, their political attitudes or their feelings about Greece after so many years after Junta? Do you think there is a kind of more democratic sentiment?
Some of them, one woman that she was pro-Junta, when I came out, she said, I guess, Athena, you were right. But they don't want to get involved politically, they tell me. I said, when the Greek independence took place, there were priests that took part in the revolution in Greece. So that was political. But here, they don't want to get involved politically. I don't know why. One thing I noticed about the Greek community, when they are with the Americans, they want to be known as Greeks. But when they are with the men that came here for higher education and women, they want to be known as Americans. And I feel they're very confused. Now, my children, I never forced them to be Greeks, but I tell you, they love Greece, they want to be in Greece, they want to be buried in Greece, but I never forced them to be Greek. It's just, that's what they want. And one of my granddaughter, Anastasia, she was in a party and some people were talking about Greece. And he said, if they had said anything against Greece, I would have punched him in the face. I said, honey, you don't do that. So I accomplished that my kids love Greece and love America, but the Greek Americans in the church, unfortunately, they don't want to be involved, but there are most of them, I would say, right-wing, unfortunately.
Yeah. Let's go back to the whole situation with the Second World War and the resistance. Greece is probably the first country that really resisted to the Nazis, right? As a young girl, how you got involved to the resistance? in the Second World War?
My mother was involved. My mother spoke English. And the Captain Lemke, I remember just that name, he took part of our house. He went to every house in the village of Palio, and he selected our house for his bedroom, and the living room, he took it as having his office there. And my mother spoke English.
The Germans?
Yeah.
The Germans. Captain Lemke, the captain. I remember when they came down I was in the balcony looking at them coming down with that tripod motorcycles, they call it.
Yeah.
Sidecars. This was in September 1943.
Yeah.
When the Germans came in and took over from the Italians. The Italians had been occupying of Palio. But when the Italians fell and the government switched sides to the Allies and the Germans came in, but they stayed there for 40 days.
Yeah, the Italians didn't want to fight. They would play volleyball, and they would sing with their accordions. They didn't want to fight. I remember them like I see it right now. And then when Lemke took over, my mother was speaking English, and she was involved, so we got involved. And I was doing things secretly. They will not suspect me because I was too young. You know, I was so young, they will never suspect me, but my mother had to be careful. And my mom saved a lot of people. She saved almost a whole village. They were going to execute every one of them when they went and took the two boys and they hung them.
Tihio.
From the Tihio, yeah. And they were going to execute everyone in the village because they took the boys down from the tree. And my mother said something happened through the translation, and they did not understand what happened. So the parents had to hang up the boys themselves. And what they tell me now, they have a memorial every year in that tree because you could see the marks. And they read part of I wrote a poem about them, and the chapter that I wrote about the boys. Just now, about 2 years ago, that branch fell off that they had hung the boys. And I have their names. So anyway, to me, that was the most exciting thing in my life. Fighting the Nazis and helping people to disappear from the village. My mother would tell me that the Nazis had pictures of the left wing, if you want to call them left wing, and I would go and tell them to disappear from the village because they're looking for them.
I see. I know that the Germans did many atrocities all over Greece, but in the Peloponnese in particular.
Oh yeah.
But
in Crete.
In Crete, of course. And you, as a young girl there, you never felt the fear or scared about all this, because death was an everyday experience.
Oh yeah.
And torture and.
We didn't know if we're gonna live in the next hour.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was not scared. I'm not scared.
This is very important. And those people who you help to leave the village, usually, where was their destination? Go to Egypt, go to England, go to America, or hiding in other places in Greece? What is really the destination of hiding people? Yeah.
I know one of them, my sister-in-law's brother, went to Russia. Some of them, we never know what happened to them. Maybe they were killed. Maybe they killed them and we didn't know about it. There was a Nick Triadafilou, he was a teacher from Efpalio. We don't know what happened to him. The only one we're sure is my sister-in-law's brother. He came back to Greece after 30 years with a Russian wife, and they settled in Efpalio. No, some of them disappeared.
Well, one of the things I found interesting about that time period is there was no radio, well, not really, no telephones, no internet, no newspapers. So you didn't really know what was going on. You just were in the village and you knew what you saw or what you heard from other villages. People would say rumors, like when the Germans were coming, they would say they're coming, and her family had to go up in the mountains up to the village, Potidania. And then
in Potidania, there was a bicycle, and they would charge the radio with it, and that's where we got the news from England, from other places. But the Germans came up there, and we had to leave the town every time Germans would come. And one time, like I say in my book, I went down to a river to cross the river. I mean, I don't know how we did not drown, but when we got across, the two of us, my girlfriend, Costadina, we heard wolves. So my mother didn't know where I was. And we came back, and I was wet from the river. And when my mother saw me, oh my gosh, she was so happy and gave me clean clothes and dried the wounds.
Well, I think Athena says in her book that it's the adults who were worried. They're the ones who were fearful. They had all the responsibilities. She was a child, 12, 13, 14 years old.
Yeah.
Never really quite knew something different from that experience, but she was, I think one important thing is that at a young age, she was politicized, so to speak. She knew
I was 9 years old.
She knew right from wrong, and she saw the Germans, and she knew they were wrong. She saw the junta, she knew they were wrong. Yeah.
Did the Germans know that you were an American citizen, and if that played any role?
My mother had an American flag, and he says, maybe I should put that in the balcony. And she said, no, don't do that. What happened? 3 of the officers, the Nazis, knew fluent Greek. They only said it when they left the town. They knew exactly where this town came from. They knew everything. They spoke fluent Greek, 3 of them.
Well, Lemke knew that your mother was from America.
Yeah.
Well, had lived there for a while because she could speak English. That's how they communicated. So, they knew that they were American, but. To me, when I was fighting the Nazis, was so important to me. That's why I didn't want to leave Greece. I don't know. I just didn't want to come here. I love Greece. That's where I want to be.
Although it was very difficult after the war, with people starving, no jobs, still you wanted to stay in Greece.
See, when the Germans came in, they took all the livestock for themselves. Mm-hmm. They left nothing for the Greeks. Okay, there were no cats left, no rats left. People will scrape the trees to make bread out of it. I know personally, I was full of sores and full of lies. I mean, you go like this, an army of, they say here at the schools they get lice. I said, I'll tell you what lice are like. We had no soap. So after 3 years, they gave my mom soap. And she refused to use it because she knew was coming from the ashes from the ovens that they were burning the people in Germany. Oh, so she refused to use the soap.
The Jewish Holocaust.
Yeah, the Holocaust. And she refused to use the soap. And when the guerrillas will come down, my mom and a friend of hers that let us stay downstairs in our house, we had 2 boys. She was a single mom. They will have the cauldrons boiling water. And what was amazed to me, those lice will come out alive from the boiling water. And the guerrillas, when they came, my mom would give them white things to put around. They like white. Take their clothes off and wrap themselves in white, then get dressed again. And my mother will go outside and shake in the balcony, all the lights to come off. So I'm laughing now, but then we didn't know if we're going to be alive from 1 hour to the other.
Yeah. let's read our first passage from your book, if you.
Well, the one I have here first. Let me see. Okay. It's not very much. If you want me to stop, I'll stop.
No, we'd love to hear your story.
And I have an accent, of course, you know that.
Nice.
This is when she was leaving Greece.
When I was leaving Greece.
It's a passage that a lot of people like because they think it speaks to her personality and it's very emotional. It's about how her parents wanted her to leave Greece, but she didn't want to.
Okay, despite the dangers, I would have stayed in Greece. I reasoned that it was mainly young men and women who had fought with the guerrillas against the Nazis who were in danger. I'd been a little too young to do so. I was also headstrong, had a purpose, and believed in myself. They called me Aetopoulo. I couldn't be in the Apon. I was Aetopoulo because I was too young. I complained to my mother about leaving Greece and cried. I didn't know what America was like or what I would do there. My mother and my father, through his letters, tried to convince me to go to America for at least 6 months so I could see where I was born. I said I'd go see it when I felt like it. Yet, despite my objections, I'd been raised to honor my parents' wishes and never seriously thought of disobeying them. So when it came time to leave, I packed my suitcase. I had only a few clothes to put in it and a small thin brown book in which I'd written the lyrics of about 53 of the revolutionary songs composed not by poets, but by the people that we had sung during the war. I kept the book besides my bag the way some people keep their Bible. The only time I parted with it was when the Germans once searched houses in our village. You know, my eyes, by the way, I'm sorry, my eyes are a little, because I have lung cancer and they're a little blurry, so I have a little hard time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I need some light. I parted with when the Germans once searched houses in our village for guns. It was incredibly dangerous for me to possess the book because the Germans would have killed my entire family if they'd found it. I gave the book to my friend Kula to hide from me. Kula's family wasn't politically involved, and so I was sure the Germans wouldn't search their house. Collaborators in the village had pointed out my family's house to the Germans to search because they knew my brother Christos was in the mountains with the Alas. But where? Kula asked me. I told her to nail the book to the bottom of the low table, which is called Sufras. The Germans didn't search her house, and the book bears 2 small holes through its covers and pages to the day. When I left for America, I couldn't leave the book behind. I had to take it. It represented the resistance to me, what was important. And I have the book. You can see the holes there. You can see the holes of the nails. I don't know if you can see them.
I can see, yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice.
My mother took Yanni and I on a streetcar from Pagrati to our ship that waited to the port of Piraeus to take us to America. Christos stayed behind in Athens to finish university. That was when the war was over, of course. I was 17 years old and I was crying. A man on the streetcars asked my mother, why is she crying? Or someone said, they're sending her to America. The man said, I wish I could go. I said, I'll gladly give you my place. Many friends and relatives came to the dock to see us off. and I have a picture there, my family and friends. Someone had a camera and we took pictures. I tried to keep up, brave from my and smile, but I was very depressed. Our ship was a United States merchant vessel named the SS Marine Carp, used as a troop ship and cargo ship during the war. It was packed with refugees bound for America in a hot and stuffy dormitory-like room in the bowels of the hall, strumming with engine noise and filled with bunk beds and the rank smell of body odor. I was jammed together with about 30 other women. I was putting my things away at my bunk, trying to keep myself together. After an emotional farewell with my mother and my friends and relatives, when one of the women called out that we were underway, I hadn't felt the ship leave the dock. I ran up the metal stairs to the deck. The air on the stern of the ship was fresh and smelled of salt. Over a wide expanse of water, I saw the dark shape of Piraeus receding behind us. It was just a thin black line on the water. I panicked and grabbed the iron handle below me. The ship's propellers turned the water white. If we'd been closer to land, I would have jumped and swum back to Greece. I would have done that. I would have done it.
How long was the trip? How many days it took to come to America?
11 days. Yeah, and here I'm almost done. Indeed, still I could do watch the land draw thinner and thinner, and then disappeared below the horizon. My body was going to America, the United States, but my soul was staying in Greece. I vowed one day that I'd return. I didn't know when or how, but I knew I would, and that everything I did from that day forward would be so I could return in Greece. And of course I did, and I got arrested. But when we got to Ellis Island in New York.
This is 1945, 46?
46.
46. So after 11 days, you ended up in Ellis Island.
Now, how do we know who my father was? We hadn't seen him. I was only 3 years old and I was 17. Someone said he looks like his sister in Greece, Alexandra. So there were so many people in that Ellis Island, you couldn't even move. And I told my brother, John, how are we going to find our father here? So all of a sudden, my father had come with his cousin from New York. I hear my name. I said, John, somebody's calling me. So we started going towards that place where the voice was coming from. And I recognized my father's cousin. He looked like his relatives in Greece. And I said, I'm Athena, you know, Athena. And this is my brother, John. He went to my father and says, Bill, I want to introduce you to your children. That was very emotional. And my father, to make this short story, when we got to a taxi, he says, I want you to do me a favor, my father. Can you sit on my lap? Because when I sent you to Greece, you were sitting in my lap. Now I was 5'5" tall. I sat on my father's lap. Yeah. And then we took the train. There were no planes then. You know, people weren't flying so much. We went by train to Chicago and then to Janesville, Wisconsin. And that's where I finished high school.
I see. And
I never wanted to go for higher education. I never wanted to be a businesswoman. I think my life was to inform people what's going on. And I still do that.
And then you return back to Chicago or you stay?
Oh, we stayed in Janesville. I finished high school. And then my brother John and I moved to Minneapolis after 6 years of crying, wanting to go back to Greece. And we came here and we found a Greek community. And we had some distant relatives here. and I'm still here in Minneapolis. And I got married. I had 3 children, 2 Greek American, divorced, and now we know each other from 1977. And if it wasn't for him, my book would have never been done. He's an excellent writer.
So the idea, tell us about the writing process. How the book came about, how you write it in parts, back and forth. You travel to Greece for some parts. Explain to us the writing process. This is a very interesting.
I went to Greece many times. In fact, I took, like I said in my book, I took Stathis Panagoulis out of Greece to Rome because she was wanted there. I really did not know they were following everything we did. I found that after the trial. Now, my husband, when I met Jim, I knew he was a writer. He has published poetry. I asked him, I want to tell my story and I can't find anyone to help me because I know I couldn't do it. So he started, and you can explain if you want to explain that.
Well, when she came back from Greece, after she was released from Kyrillos, she contacted a Greek American here, Peter Georgis. He's a writer. He writes novels, mysteries mainly. And he worked with her for a long time, but it never quite came about. And then when I met her, I guess I moved here at this house in 1980. We worked together for 3 years or so in a bookstore.
Yeah.
That's where we met, B. Dalton in Rosedale.
Also, the bookstore included Greek books, Greek American authors.
No,
American and other.
Just your American suburban bookstore.
Okay.
I'm sure they had Zorba the Greek.
Yeah. Zagis is still the most published author. Yeah.
Right.
And we met. We knew each other there. I liked her because she was passionate and political, and she liked me.
We agreed politically. Otherwise, I would have never married him.
Yeah. I think she liked me, but she was testing me out to see my politics. And one day she says, "What do you think of Fidel Castro?" And I said, "Viva Fidel." That was it. We were together.
That was the password.
Yeah. And so I said, well, I've always wanted to write. I was writing short stories and things. I said, well, I'll help you. Well, little did I know it took, from 1980 to 2018 to actually finish the book. But we wrote it for about a year and a half, straight through. I really didn't know quite what I was doing. But we started out chronologically with her life. Mm-hmm. And we got an agent, and we sent it to like 15 different publishers. And they said it was interesting, but it was not marketable. It wasn't enough big enough market for it. They wouldn't make a profit. So we kind of put it away for years, like 10, 15 years. And we always wanted to come back to it. We'd start and stop. And then I tried writing a screenplay version of it to try to make it a little bit more interesting, because people said the chronological approach was just, too tedious. We didn't quite know what the story was about. So that's why I started out with Alekos and the trial, so let people know that this is what it's about. And I actually told everybody up front that she was arrested, she was in prison and all that. So everybody knew the story right from the beginning, because that seemed to be the stumbling block. People didn't know what the book was about. And then we told it and used a lot from the past, but essentially rewrote the whole thing, trying to put her sensibility more center stage, trying to get more of her passion for politics and Greece into it. And of course, the through line, the spine of the book, the arc, is her desire to get back to Greece. That part she read about wanting to go back to Greece, that was her driving force throughout her whole life. And of course, when she went back to Greece, she just couldn't be non-political. So that's kind of how she got involved in it. Actually, it sort of sabotaged her chance to live in Greece, because she was arrested and she had to leave after Kyrillos. So,
and people ask me, like the Greek community, how come you went through the Nazi occupation and you were tortured I was in solitary confinement for a month and a year in prison. How come you love Greece so much? I says, that made me a strong person, what I did, fighting the Nazis and the junta. Now, as far as my husband goes, he was afraid writing the book because he's not Greek, he's Scandinavian. He studied so much about Greece. He knows everything about Greece, coming from Venizelos way back, the politics. He knows the country. He's been in Greece twice. He would move himself there tomorrow if he could. Yeah. That's how much he likes Greece.
I'd like to live in Efpalia.
In Efpalia, in the village there.
Yeah. No, the book is very well written. I have to tell you that. And
thanks to my husband.
Well, it was difficult for me because, like she said, I'm a kid from Minnesota. You know, I don't know really much about that. Although I have an interest in history, a general background in history about Second World War and so forth, American foreign policy. But I had to learn all that, and I put all that in the book. Then I had to take a lot of it out because it was overwhelming. Her story. I just wanted to put enough history in to give context because we were writing it for two different audiences. We were writing it for the Greeks who knew all this stuff.
All the stuff, the Americans.
And the Americans who didn't know any of it.
I don't know if all Greeks know all the stuff.
Yeah. You know, many Americans friends tell me, Athena, by the way, everybody likes, not one person said they didn't like the book. They said, we learned things from your book that we did not know. And this is to me very exciting that I have taught some Americans what is going on, especially with the foreign American policy.
Well, and also knowing that most of the people who read the book would be Americans or Greek Americans who weren't from Greece. We didn't want to overwhelm them with criticism of American foreign policy. Like Athena kept saying, when she talks about the junta, she blames the Greek junta first, before she starts blaming American foreign policy or the Greek people, because they're all victims of the junta, a small minority of extreme right-wing fascists who took over. So,
but everybody says how well it's written. We went through a nightmare to finish this book. We went through a nightmare. In fact, Fondas, he called me up on the Skype. We talked with Fondas. He told me you were there in Greece with him.
Yes.
Yeah. He said about the only thing he can say is the index. But we thought of that. But we went through a nightmare to put this book together because Jim, he had to learn a lot of things about Greece before we could do this book.
When I was always very concerned about getting it right.
Yeah.
And I was trying to be objective.
You did a great justice to all of this, to put it that way.
Yeah, and I wanted everything to be the truth and everything to be correct. I didn't want even one word. Now, they wanted to translate it into Greek, but it would have cost 4,000 euros. And what I would be afraid that they might change things, and I want only the truth. I don't want anything to be taken as a lie. No.
Yeah. And how the community there received, how the book was received by the community?
Some of them bought it, and they were going to have at the St. Mary's Church, which I helped build actually that church. I'm not involved with it anymore. They were going to have a book signing for me. But this crisis happened now, and the churches are closed. So,
and I also wanted to invite you here in Astoria and at the Queen's College also.
I know. I wanted to come so bad, but my granddaughter is stuck here. Her boyfriend is stuck in New York, and she probably will never. She doesn't want to leave me. Unfortunately, she wants, and she loves Jim. He's been like the father to her. I would have loved to come, but unfortunately this crisis, and also I have to, every 3 weeks I have to have chemo. I'm doing fine though. You know what? I don't use a cane. I don't use a walker. I have so much energy and a great appetite.
Well, I will try to organize a book club event as we do today. I'll have some people read the book.
Oh, yeah.
Get the book and read it, and we can do it online because both periods are, all your periods are important, right? The life in America as a Greek American, the participation during the German occupation, the junta years. And I would like to talk more about the junta years because there are still people here in Astoria that were involved, and we're trying to collect these memories. And it would be good if we can keep talking. And more recently, both the American authorities released some archives from the junta years, and we see the official versions. And now we know more things about Alekos Panagoulis and all the dark stories behind it, and the attempts to kill him for so many times. I would like to have this discussion at some point. I'm very glad that the community is responding well to this, because it is a mistake to have an overall to dismiss Greek Americans as being all of them pro-junta. It's not. People like you save the dignity of the American community, showing that there are people who resisted, and this is very important. And I want to know the internal struggles you had, because for many years it was a sense that the American foreign policy was responsible partially for the establishment of junta. And at the same time, you're a person who has both identities and ethnicities. How was that conflict in you?
Being an American citizen and a Greek citizen.
And knowing that one country, the American country, the foreign policy of that time did some harm by encouraging the junta. I don't know if they supported it, but at least working with them.
That bothered me so much. And I have nothing against the American people because they're not informed, but I have problem with American foreign policy, not only for Greece, but every country. South America. I mean, I can go on, and I'm so much against it. And they know me. You know, they know how active I am. What they going to do with me now? Arrest me? But I told some people in Greece, if I disappear, that means they picked me up and sent me somewhere. And they said, I hope they send you back to Greece. No, I'm not afraid to speak against the American foreign policy. It's so disgusting.
Well, one interesting aspect of publishing the book, I was worried that some of the people that we know here, Americans, who are conservative, who are really right wing, would never talk to us again. But they're the people who like the book the best.
They've been selling my book. A woman, my neighbor, she sold 5 of them, and she's only for Trump.
I don't know if it's because they know someone who wrote a book, or if it's because they're learning something they never heard. They felt like they've been kept in the dark by the American government. Again, it's not real aggressive. I mean, a lot of, I'm glad that they're releasing some archives or documents. I knew that there was something in the works, but when you're researching the book on the junta, there's not a lot about the junta, especially translated into English. I read a lot of articles, The Guardian and so forth had some good articles. Glezos had a good article in The Guardian about 1944 and the British and so forth.
Glezos?
Yeah, Glezos. But I think that the Greek community here is not monolithic. There's all variations.
Exactly. Yeah.
And a lot of the Greek Americans who are really more Americans with a Greek culture, ethnicity, as sort of a flavor to their Americanness. they are like a lot of Americans who really don't want to know much about the politics. They just want to live their lives, which I can't blame them for. And all of us just want to, have a job and have a family and be happy. And so, yeah, as an American, knowing what America's done to Greece is very disturbing to me. I feel very ashamed of American foreign policy, throughout the last half of the decade in Middle East and in Africa and Central America. We got together and we protested against the U.S. foreign policy in Latin America, supporting El Salvador and attacking Nicaragua with the Contras. And we were for the nuclear freeze, trying to stop nuclear weapons. And she worked with the Native Americans.
Yeah.
And we were both in Occupy when that happened. Yeah. We still meet. We have a group, Occupy St. Paul. We still meet to talk about politics because there's not a whole lot of people you can really talk politics to, who really are not just liberals, but actually leftists. Now they often talk about the difference between making a liberal complaint and a radical analysis of the situation. So we're more of the type that make radical analysis. Let the chips fall where they may. If it shows that Greece is wrong or if America's wrong, that's just the way it is because the truth is the truth.
As you know, that Greece went through a terrible period during the austerity years between 2010 and now, let's say. The headlines in American newspapers and other places were very negative against Greece these years because of the austerity. Although now they realize they made a mistake, but at that time it was very difficult to identify as Greek. How you receive it, and also what was the reaction of the community for the bankruptcy that Greece, almost went to the previous years?
I didn't understand that, but
the reaction to Greek austerity.
Yeah. Oh, how they went, the Greek community?
Yeah, Greek community.
Yeah, and also you personally, both of you. Yeah.
I like Tsipras. He was the best one, I think, for Greece. Of course, they would not let him survive. But you said something before about, my father told me a lot of things about the Greeks here. They used to call them the dirty Greeks. Yeah. The dirty Greeks, they had separate bathrooms for the Greeks. Like they did for the black people, they had separate bathrooms for the Greeks. Oh, really? And my father told me when Greece was pushing the Italians back to Rome, that's when people here realized that they were not dirty Greeks, but they were good Greeks.
Yeah. The stance that Greece had during the war changed the opinion, discriminatory views that many Americans had against Greeks. Yes. Yeah. This is a historical fact. Yes, absolutely. But during the 30 years, the more recent stigma against Greece, how was it received there? Both the community and the American community. Yeah.
The American community have no idea what's going on in Greece, to be honest with you. They don't care to know. Some of them, they don't want to be known as Greeks. And this is not only for Greeks. It goes for Jews. It goes for other people too, other minority groups. I don't know if we're minority. We gave so many gifts to the world. And they want to destroy us.
So you think because they are assimilated or other reasons?
No, they just don't care. They don't care. They don't care. I try to inform them, and some of them listen and some don't.
Well, Americans are pretty American-centric. We care about what happens here. That's, I think, why people voted for Trump, because he was going to, stop this internationalism, stop this globalism. We're going to America first. In general, I think that Americans look at other countries like Greece or even Italy or Spain who are going under austerity, and they think it's their fault. They had all this socialism and all this giveaways, and they just blew it because they were incompetent. And they don't understand how the international banking system works and how the Troika is using Greece to make money. How they around the world, you know, they call this economic terrorism, where they'll go in and they'll set up a dictatorship in, you know, South America, someplace, Peru or someplace, and they'll say, okay, now you take out enormous loans, and they know they couldn't pay them back, so the loans go to the rich people. And I think this happens in Greece too.
Yeah.
And then after the, you know, corrupt government fails or the dictatorship falls, then the banks come in and say, well, you know, you still owe us all that money you took out under the dictatorship, and the people have to pay it back, and they know they can't pay it back, so they're just, you know, living off the interest of the debt, or they're asking for in return or national resources. You know, give us your land, give us your ports, give us your oil. And it's just a way for capitalism to just thrive off the misfortunes of others. It's a debt trap. The people, capitalists, the European Union, the Troika, the Americans here, vulture capitalists, they put people into debt on purpose, so they know they can't pay it back, so then they can take everything they've got. And here people think, well, you know, if the Greek politicians and the Greek people had just wanted to work harder and not wanted all these handouts and wanted the good life, then they wouldn't be in this situation. But they have to buckle down now. They gotta take their medicine, and when they're done with this, they'll realize, you know, the American Puritan work ethic really does work, and you're going to be better off. You're going to be just like America.
Well, yeah, you know, it's voted in Europe that the Greeks work harder than any other country in Europe. Yeah. They work hard. I'm proud of them now with the crisis, though, what they did. I don't know if you want me to talk about that.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. The first person that died from the corona virus, they closed down everything. Schools. I have Greek channels. I watch everything. And so that's why there are only 144 deaths. But what I saw on the Greek channel, groceries will be delivered to the houses, medication will be delivered to the houses. And someone said this, when the Greeks are in some kind of trouble, they get together like we did with the Nazis. Like now, we are together to stop this virus. And now when I go for my chemo, I also, because I tell them, you know, if they take all the Greek words out of the English language, there would be no English language. And I tell them how many Greek words are in the Greek language. And they waited.
More than 60%, yeah.
How much?
More than 60%.
60%. And I tell them, okay, take the virus off. What do you say? Corona. Okay, you just spoke Greek. I try to inform people, Americans that is, about Greece and the gifts that Greece gave to the world. And but anyway, I'm still active as much as I can now, because, you know, we can't have meetings. Helping the Native Americans. We had them sitting on the sidewalks, the Native Americans, and I needed about 20 hats and scarves for them, and clothes and blankets and whatever I could. So I'm still active.
How big is the Native American community?
We're not, between St. Paul and Minneapolis, about 6,000 to 7,000 people. And there's a Greek church in St. Paul, St. George's, and St. Mary's in Minneapolis. It's not a big community. But Thodorakis had come here, Vasilis Vasilikos stayed in my house, Thodorakis, Maria Farandou, all those people, and they tell me, how did you, I don't know, it just came, they came here.
You're talking about the Greek American community.
The Greek Americans?
Yeah. The Native American community is fairly small. It's not very many.
Oh, the Native Americans, oh yeah, very small community.
There are groups around the state, and, you know, they have reservations.
Yeah, we have reservations up north.
Yeah. A lot of people were living on the streets here. A lot of Native Americans were living on the streets in Minneapolis in tents. And they, of course, they wanted to go in and, you know, tear up their tents. But they found ways to move them to other places in Minnesota.
but it's not. It is in general the Greek American community supporting the Native Americans or individuals like you. Overall, do the Greek Americans have, a collective effort supporting the natives?
No.
No.
No. No, they think they should go to work. How can they work? No. My granddaughter's husband has gone down there many times, buying jackets and everything else for them. So the people that I know. Other than that, no, the Greek community does not care.
Or the Greek church to support
No.
them.
No.
But let's go back and expand on some of the names you just mentioned. The famous author Vasilikos, who's still alive, and Mickey is still alive. The composers and the singers. Tell us about.
Okay, Vasilis Vasilikos stayed for a week here with me.
She gave some lectures and he read books.
Yeah, he spoke at the University of Minnesota, and I took him there. And
they screened his film Z.
Yeah, the Z movie Z.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then he said when he was talking, you have a hero among you, and I just went down. I'm not a hero. I did what I did because I believed in it. And he stayed here, and then he congratulated Jim because Jim is 27 years younger than me. She congratulated Jim for marrying an older woman.
Although she looks younger than I do, but
yeah, he has gray hair. I don't.
Yeah.
And then Theodorakis, we have pictures of Mickey Theodorakis and Maria Farandouri. I took her to a hotel and we stayed there for 3 hours talking with Maria. And
she was there for a concert. Maria was there for a concert.
Yeah. And also, what's his name? He was the singer. I can't think of his name right now. Yeah, so many people came here, but my house was open for all of them.
Or Mikis Theodorakis came here, gave a concert, Canto General, at St. Catherine's College in
the 90s and the 80s. Do you remember when?
In the 80s. Yeah, I was young and skinny, and we have pictures.
I have a funny story to say about Papathanasiou, the actress. I picked her up. I was going to the airport every day bringing people here. She stayed with me, and she said, Athena, I have to be somewhere because I had a whole group from Chicago come to play here. Vasilis Gaetanos and his group.
Oh, I know Gaetano. I know very well.
Do you know Vasily?
Very well, yeah, of course.
He stayed here too. Yeah, I know Vasily and Dimitra, his wife.
He also wrote the book, and he mentioned some names and the Mickey's connection. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I found a professor lives in an island. We have 10,000 islands here. To go and stay because she says I will have to be alone for 2 days before I perform at the University of Minnesota. So I found the professor. I took her there. She stayed for 2 days, and then she performed at the university, and then she came back here to me. Now, I had people sleeping all over the house, people I didn't even know. They brought their friends. I had to climb over people to go to the garage. And one morning we got up and I said, Athanasia, kid, I'm going to fix Greek coffee. You want some? There are people sleeping and who didn't want. Vasilis was here and his group. And she said, yeah. So we sat on the counter drinking Greek coffee. And I said, where are you from? She said, Lamia. When she said Lamia, the people in Rumeli, they have a different dialect. I don't know. They cut the words.
I know.
And I said, in Greek, Mouri Rumiliotis Aise, are you from Rumeli? And we start laughing. And when I went to Greece, I called her up. And she said, Athena, I have been in many houses, nothing like yours. I would cook chickens and everything else. And I'll tell everybody, help yourselves. I'm not going to serve everybody. Open up the refrigerator. But unfortunately, when I called her, she was leaving for France and she couldn't see me. But she's still alive, though.
Yes.
And Vasilis Vasilikos still alive.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I have the only connection I have right now with I forget his name. The poet, honey. Anyway, your friend.
Oh,
Fondas Ladis. That's the only one I can. And I told him if anybody sees because when Vasilis Vasilikos was my house, I showed him the title of the book. This is years ago. And he says, Athena, you're the only one. This book, if it's ever written, it's going to be successful. Because not only you're a woman, you were born in the United States.
Exactly.
And he said it's going to be successful. Of course, we're not selling many books, but that's okay.
Well, he sold about 300. I mean, that's good for any published book, especially a self-published book. Self-publishing really was the reason that this book exists, because you can go online and do all these things and get the books printed on demand. So that's really a great way of publishing.
Yeah.
I know that the University of Minnesota, they have a Greek program, don't they?
The University of Minnesota. I know Professor Stavru and his brother Sotiris Stavru. He wanted to do something.
Yeah, so there is a connection between the university and the community, I suppose. So, through the university, it can be some,
Well, I was emailing back and forth with Thanasi Stavru about having some kind of a book event for her, but he informed me that recently the University of Minnesota has defunded the Greek program. They don't have any money, and he's teaching Russian history, but essentially right now I think the Greek language program and the Greek history, modern Greek studies is no longer being funded at the university. So he couldn't have anything for us because he doesn't have any authority to do anything like that.
It's very unfortunate, and I don't think so. I'm afraid that is not typical only for Minnesota, as far as concerned Greek American studies. How do you explain that? Because in the 70s, it was they were thriving, the Greek programs all over the American universities. How do you explain the decline and the loss of funding, since the community overall, it is a very prosperous community. And Greek Americans, they enjoy an above average socioeconomic status as far as concerned the American census.
Well, I think that, back in the 60s and 70s, state universities and universities in general were funded more by the government. Nowadays, the funding is less and less, and the tuitions are going higher and higher, as you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of the sponsors to the University of Minnesota are corporate, and a lot of the emphasis is on not education for education's sake, but I know I'm not telling you anything new, but education to get a job.
Yeah.
And so business programs, computer programs, those practical things are the emphasis, and the arts in general.
And the humanities,
music and writing and everything else is being given short shrift, and including Greek American studies, like in the Southwest here in the United States, the Latin studies, the history of Hispanic history of the Southwest is being discouraged. A lot of things that have to do with bilingual education are being discouraged. So I think the languages that are being taught are the kind of the European, European-centric, French, German, those kinds of things, which Americans consider more of their mainstream heritage.
I hear you. Yeah. One more reason why the book is very important. Can you give me an idea? I mean, what is your sense about the future of the Greek American community in the States? Is it going to be totally assimilated? I mean, you're still a person, you know, who, although born here, you live for a few years in Greece, you went through a lot, but still you identify yourself as Greek. Do you think that the next generation of Greek Americans still will identify as Greeks, or?
I think they get lost. My kids will be, but not. I used to be involved with the church, and it was all in Greek, and now it's all in American. They don't speak.
You mean the liturgy, the mass?
The liturgy, yeah. Many Americans joined the church, and it's only in English. And that's not why I don't go. It's just that I did a lot of research about it, and I have a lot of questions. But my book, if the church things were different and presented my book, I would have told the Greek Americans, you're going to learn from my book, be proud of Greece. You don't have to be Greek, be American, but you'll be proud what Greece has done. And unfortunately, this crisis, the churches are closed.
Well, I think in general, younger people are more interested in multiculturalism and diversity. They're more open-minded. I think some of the older Greeks, as far as I can tell, just in general, older Americans tend to gravitate towards institutions like the church. And the church is an institution whose main goal is to assure the survival of the institution. So they gravitate towards power. Those people in government and corporate world that can support them, continue the church, protect the church from what they consider maybe as this leftist hedonism. But I don't think the young people have all those preconceptions or biases. So I'm rather hopeful.
Yeah.
I think Greece, to a lot of people, is a symbol of hope that you can survive this austerity. I mean, it seems like here that they're the ones who suffered the most in the American mentality than the Italians or the Spanish, even though they've suffered too.
My granddaughter, Alexandra Alexia, just had a baby, named him Nicholas. And his father is, his mother is Caucasian, his father is from Lebanon, he's Lebanese. They want me to talk to the baby. He's only 7 months old, in Greek.
Wow, very nice.
They want me to talk to him in Greek. That's all they want, and I do. I talk to him, and he turns around, he knows who I am, and he listens to the words, the Greek, and I sing to him baby songs in Greek, but his name is like your name. Nikolaos.
It's really nice.
Yeah.
Some of the things you mentioned before about the austerity measures in the public sector and the private and the market, that comes back again with the virus. We see that it is not only toxic, but it is also a class issue, a race issue, and the importance of central government and public health system. How you experience the coronavirus, and some of your thoughts about the high unemployment, which it can be compared only to the 1929 economic crash, right? So, what?
Talk about that?
Yeah, let's talk about your experience and the community's experience.
We follow the rules. I don't allow anybody else in my house except my husband. And of course, because of the cancer that I have, I'm controlling it. I'm fine. No problem with that. It's like I have nothing. I tell my doctor I feel 25. He says that's how I want you to feel. Anyway, we wear masks. We wear gloves. We 6 feet and more apart. My neighbors, we have big verandas. We talk through the verandas. That's fine. They're too far away. And we try to follow the rules. And Minnesota has done pretty good on that. Minnesota is pretty good. We have a good governor. I don't like to see things opening up so fast. We're going to see a lot more deaths. And unfortunately, United States is not doing a good job.
Yeah, yeah. Especially here in New York and in Queens. It is the epicenter. Queens is the epicenter, unfortunately. How you do your shopping?
Oh, my husband does the shopping, but he takes every precaution.
You go out or you?
I wear my gloves and my mask, and the
stay
grocery
away.
store is just half a mile down the road.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
And I have to go to my parents all the time because they're 90, and I have to do their grocery shopping too. So, it comes to a point, I guess, where America's coming to this point where the system is set up so that you have to go out and shop. And it's a capitalist system that demands people to go out and work, and they're not giving people enough money to stay home like they are in some countries in Europe, which I think is on purpose to get everybody back out there to make money for the billionaires. But we haven't had that much of an effect in Minnesota. The death rate's fairly low.
And the thing, when I see the people demonstrating that they think we took their freedom away by staying home, and they have those, I call them machine guns. Those are weapons. Yeah. But when we're demonstrating, we're not allowed to carry an umbrella. That was considered weapon. Yeah. But now all these people with those war guns, they don't do anything to them. Yeah. And of course, Trump says they like me. They like him. That's why they're doing what they're doing.
I think we feel like the crisis is being used by these disaster capitalists to gain things that they want. And I don't think there's really much of a concern for the public. Although I was listening to Mario Cuomo the other day.
I listen to Mario Cuomo every day.
And I think he's got a good point that the election in November is going to be about governance, whether or not government is important, what role it plays in life, which I think that this crisis shows that there needs to be a central government response to organize things to help the people.
Yeah.
Excellent. You like to read us another small passage and close the interview? It would be nice.
Yeah, I have.
And I would like to James to read the poem, one of his poems.
Yeah, he wants you to read it?
Read.
Huh? Later, a poem, one of your poems.
Oh, one of my poems?
Yeah.
Oh, one of his, yeah, okay.
I think I will read a small passage from the book, your book, and
Jim's, okay.
Well, and Jim's one of his poems, and close it, yeah.
You can read this, and I will
decide which poem. Okay.
I will try to find our poem.
Okay. When I got arrested, this is when I got arrested.
Yeah, but you got arrested so many times. Which time is this one?
What?
When you got arrested? This
is when I got arrested.
Trying to free Alecos.
Trying to get Alecos out.
I said you have been arrested so many times. Which one is this one?
Oh, this one is trying to get Alecos out of prison.
Okay.
6 streets met at the intersection in front of us. 2 of them were paved. The others were dirt. As was the street that I parked on. The broad intersection looked like an unfinished square in the street lights. The ground had been washed bare and was rough with gravel and dried nuts. People were asleep inside the homes across the road. Their open windows were dark. All was silent except for the pulsing zing of insects. Costas lit a cigarette. I lit a cigarette. We should agree on a story of how we met. I told John, in case you were arrested, he was driving the car, John Skelton. How about if we say we met in New York City at the party of Jeannie Jatron? She was a friend of mine. John smiled. A cocktail party? As a serious theology student, the idea amused him. I didn't mean a party in a penthouse full of rich people listening to jazz while the lights of Manhattan glimmered on the window. I finished my cigarette and crumbled the remains of the paper and tobacco out the window. The breeze was cool and refreshing. A man in one of the bedrooms coughed, and it startled me. It looked like the plot was going to work. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Then two dogs trotted down one of the unpaved street toward the intersections. I worried they would bark as Alekos and his guard dropped over the wall and give us away, but the dogs turned away and disappeared into the shadows between two houses. What time is it? Costas asked. I held my wristwatch up to the light from the windshield. 10 minutes to 3. This is the crucial moment, Costas said. If they aren't here by 3, we'll leave. Open your door, Athena, and tilt your seat forward. And I was stooped down, actually. I understood what Costas told me to do this. When Alekos and his guard came, you'd be in a hurry to get into the car. I got into the position. I was sitting sideways and awkwardly holding the seat toward me when I noticed a black car without headlights coast across the intersection. It rolled straight toward us and stopped half on the sidewalk and half on the road 3 feet in front of our car. This looks very suspicious, Costa said. At first I thought it was an accident. The driver had a heart attack or something. I was angry at that, like the dogs, this car was jeopardizing our plot. I was about to get out and ask the people, that's me, in the black car if they needed help. When all 4 doors of the car sprang open and men wearing civilian clothes and darting, some machine guns jumped out. 6 to 8 more cars with headlights glaring toward at us from all sides. The men from the first car pointed their submachine guns at us and screamed, "Get out of the car!" As the other car skidded to a halt inches from our Volkswagen, boxing us in. Men leaped from the cars and joined the screaming. I immediately decided I was an American who didn't understand Greek and didn't move. John, who really didn't understand Greek, didn't move either. We'd better get out, Costa said, as one of the men opened John's door and flung him into the dirt road. John screamed, "What's happened? What happened?" I stepped from the car and several men pointed their machine guns at my stomach. Get your hands up, they screamed in Greek. I didn't respond. My bag slipped from my shoulder and I reached for it. The men regripped their machine guns and screamed more fiercely for me to raise my hands. They were shaking. I was too shocked to be scared. One of the men, his face red and swollen with rage, thrust the submachine gun on my face. He held me there while another man with a limp walked up to me, wrenched my arms together in front of me, and handcuffed my wrists. The men dragged me across the road toward the single homes and stood me before a fence covered in clematis. Costas and John were lined up next to me, Costas on my right and John on my left. 3 men began beating Costas with their fists and the butts of their guns. They kicked him. "My eye," Costas screamed. They pulled him up. His glasses were crooked on his face. One man held his pistol beside Costas' ear and pulled the trigger. Costas' face contracted with my eyes, pain from the blast. Lights appeared in the windows of homes and people came out into their balconies. There were silhouettes in pajamas and nightgowns. A man grabbed my left arm and hurled me into the back seat of the car. I looked through the rear window and saw a man slap John across the face. Two men got into the back seat with me. They sandwiched me between them. The one on my left jammed his submachine gun into my ribs. Another man walked up to the driver's window and told the driver that 3 Makrimalides, men with long hair, had been seen nearby. The driver told him, leave them alone. They have nothing to do with this. Then we sped off, driving wildly through the streets. It was the first time that night I'd been truly frightened. The driver drove so fast, I thought he was going to kill us. The wind from the open window wiped the hair about my face. Each time I tried to brush it away, the muzzle of the machine gun jabbed my side. Then the man shifted his submachine gun to his other hand and began to fondle my breasts. Does anyone speak English? I yelled over the phone, the noise of the car, the wind, and the road. The man on my right said, I do. Then tell him to take his hands off of me. The man told the other man in Greek what I'd said. He pulled his hand away and pushed my head down to the floor of the car. I was so doubled over, I couldn't breathe. I am suffocating, I yelled, but I was not let up. It's like this is happening right now. The whole thing, it's in my mind like it's happening right now. They were horrible. That's all I have to say. They're horrible.
Thank you.
Sums it up.
Oh man, that was.
Sorry, my eyes are not because of.
You did fine, very well.
Because of the chemo, yeah.
Well, I was going to say that I'm proud of the book, helping write the book, because I think that she tells a lot of things behind the scenes about very important events that other people don't know about.
Yeah.
Her relationship with Stathes and with the sort of the inside workings of the plot,
mm-hmm.
and what she went through. And so I'm glad that, I think you said it's an important addition to the anti-junta literature. So that makes me feel very proud that it did something to help Greece.
Yes.
Especially when I was in solitary confinement. That was quite something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you want me to read a poem?
Yes, please.
Well, I've been writing new poems for, they're on my website, jameschendersonpoet.com.
Oh, okay.
Poems in the time of pandemic. I'm trying to write a poem a day. Of course, I'm like 2 weeks behind, but whatever. But this is sort of like, automatic writing. You turn off the critic and you just write from the subconscious. So this poem is for Athena, but all of them are for Athena. So this is called Savannah of the Serengeti. Within me is a vast savanna where wild, rare animals roam. Imaginary beasts only I have known. Strange beasts of horn and hoof, spotted, striped, and some plain as a sea of grass. All gone with me if I should die. Within me too are our times together, the long afternoon of soaking rain, the window open to the cool April air, the night deepening as you sleep, with me the only witness. No one has known you sleep as I have. The gentleness of your breathing, the warm reassurance of your body, the subtle movements of your arms and legs, the sweetness of your breath. Surely I have loved you as much as I have loved this world. And when in sleep you roll over and turn away from me, I love you even more.
I read that and said,
Oh.
He's written wonderful poems, yeah.
I'll definitely visit your website to read some more poems.
Yeah. So Some are goofy, some are serious, but you know, it's like in the pandemic, you're worried, you got all these different images. Somehow Africa got in there. I don't know how it got in.
Yeah, people read them, but you know what? The one thing I can say this much: the American people don't care too much about poetry.
Oh.
But the Greeks do. All the response, most of the response he got for his poems from the Facebook are Greeks.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You mean from Greece or from here?
Both.
Oh, really? That's very interesting.
Yeah, the American people don't care much about poetry, so they don't respond. But the Greek people, they do love poetry. Yeah. See, I know a lot of things about Greece. I have never lost touch with Greece. Never. And now having the Greek channels, of course.
She speaks Greek all the time, and people are surprised that she knows Greek so well. And
yeah. See, I was from 1932 to 1946 in Greece, most of it under the Nazi occupation, then 1 month in solitary confinement and 1 year in Korydallos. My Greek, I feel, is better than my English. I don't know why.
Yeah, I was very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Oh.
And I wish you all the best through these trying times. And I would like to do something more with the book. Did anyone had a book review? Anybody review it so far?
We had a professor from Indiana State University at South Bend, Niovi.
Niovi, what was it?
Yeah, I know her, yeah.
What do you? Yeah, she was searched for the book and finally she couldn't get it. And she called us and we did send her a book.
She wanted to do a review of the book for her online magazine, Ergon. And we sent it to her quite a while ago. I haven't heard anything since. I don't know.
I will take care of this. I'll do it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll contact her and I'll let them know that I will do it.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because she was so excited about when we sent her the book, and we haven't heard anything since.
Yeah. I'll contact her and I'll let her know.
Well, thank you so much for inviting us to
and
this
it's so nice to see you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
it. For the honor that you gave me. That is something. So
both of you are fantastic. And let's stay safe and well. And
yes, and you too.
Yeah, you too.
You take care of it.
Because you have more things to do after this.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Yeah.